CIU podcast listener. This is Dr. Williams and Professor
Chris Kempson.
Chris Kempson. We're glad to welcome you to our podcast again. Again, this is CIU, Berkeley College of Law. And to our listener, we are always grateful to have you follow our video. Let's keep doing that. We keep bringing up, different topics. We keep improving and adding new ones. And if you have questions, make sure you tap it in the bottom. After you've listened to our video, send us a question and we answer them. But today, briefly, we'll talk about, we want to give an example of some of the things we talk about. Maybe we can briefly discuss, some of our legal system, the criminal justice system, for example. How does a legal case begin? How does a criminal procedure begin? The arrest warrant, all those kind of things. Let's just discuss something very basic. Professor Kempson, I'll let you take the lead on that.
Well, good morning, Dr. Williams. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Yes. So the study of criminal law is one of the most, I would say, popularized fields based on all the television shows that surround that we've known for many, many years, Law and Order, to name one particular one, because people understand, that, and I'm here to tell you that the actual process and study of law and practice of law is not even close to Law and Order. It gives you that's more for entertainment purposes than for educational purposes. So the actual, criminal justice system is a very procedural system, beginning with the arrest, of the suspected individual. Then the next process would be bail, as guaranteed by the Constitution. And then, after bail, then the individual goes for an arraignment before the neutral hearing officer, before the judge, and the judge decides whether or not, to continue through the process. And at that point, at the arraignment process, is when the individual is the first time actually appearing before the judge, and then they would make their initial pleading of guilty or not guilty at that time. Then the court itself will then make a finding to continue forward or not continue forward. Mm-hmm. At that point, the charges themselves are formally introduced in an indictment and either presented to the court or through a grand jury. And at that time, both of those bodies, the finder of fact, makes a determination whether or not to proceed. Mm-hmm. At that time, then you go through the next judicial step, which would be the preliminary hearings. And as attorneys, this is where basically the real work begins. This is where all the pretrial motions go in. This is where all the rules, because as I teach my students, the practice of law is much like the playing of baseball, the practice of baseball. You have the game itself, but you have the rules that are set down so both teams, both parties understand, how the game is played and the rules that govern that game. And the legal system, criminal law in particular, has the same set of rules. You have rules of criminal procedure, rules of civil procedure, and each jurisdictions have their own rules of court. Mm-hmm. So both parties are well aware of the criminal justice and the criminal proceeding and the rules governing them. Then, of course, you have, all like things such as the exclusionary rule and rules of evidence. And again, these are things that you'll also learn in your advanced studies of law school, depending on your subfield that you choose after your second year. These are when you take your specialty courses. Then, of course, after all the preliminary hearings and pretrial motions, you actually have the trial itself. And as you've seen, for entertainment purposes, for Law and Order, as you've seen, the trial is, looks like it's 20 minutes into the show. And actually, it's a lot longer than that during the stage. Yes, the Constitution through the Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to speedy trial, but that speedy trial does not happen within an hour, as you see on TV. Usually, after all the preliminary hearings and pretrial motions are done, the next step is that trial, and that trial before a judge or a jury, depending on what the accused chooses as the trier of fact. And then, of course, depending on the outcome of the trial, guilty or not guilty, obviously the person goes free at that point. And guilty, then the person is sentenced. And depending on the jurisdiction you're in, the sentencing can either be done by the court or by the jury, depending on the severity of the sentence.
So,
After sentence is imposed, then if there are procedural errors, then the appellate process starts.
right.
So I mean, there's many different steps and phases in the criminal case or the criminal process itself.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. So, I mean, you want to know, is it a federal case? Is it is it a state case? Is it going to be the federal district court, or is it going to be a federal court? So many different things, and that is what we train lawyers to do that, to do spot finding, what their mistake made, what did they have the first accused, the defendant, did they have their meridian rights abused? Did they have all of their rights, and were they properly served? Did they search them well? What did they violate any of their the Fourth Amendment or any of those things? Different things, there's a whole array of things we teach our lawyers, pre-lawyers to learn, because if you say you want to represent somebody and you didn't know these rules, this person is just better at representing himself. And so, because if as a lawyer, you don't know how to spot these rules, how to help them, how to help your client, then of course you serve no real purpose. So that's what the school come in. Before you get out there, you get to be properly trained to know all of the different procedures, what is criminal procedures. After learning criminal law, you learn criminal procedure, of course, you learn constitutional law, evidence, all of this gathering. So we spend time to make you know all of these things so that you can have your client, with this case maybe the defendant, to have fair trial, proper hearing, and hopefully they will not be guilty. But that part may often rest with the jury. We just want you to be well prepared, well trained, so you can represent them. We have a lot of criminal cases that come up, and you never know when you'll be charged. So it's something good to always pay attention to when it comes to these things. Thank you so much, Professor Kempson. Yep.
And I'll leave you with one final quote. One of my favorite justices is Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, and in one of his famous court decisions, or infamous, depending on how you look at it, he remarked, "Courts are courts of law and not courts of justice." And that is a very profound statement, because when you think about it, the law itself, as you look at Lady Justice, you will see that she is indeed blindfolded with scales in one hand and in the other.
Mhm.
And as you see that sometimes justice itself is, depending on the perspective that you're looking at, justice is not one side or the other. Justice is equal,
Right.
and administered by the court.
Right.
And so that's what he was referring to: courts of law and not courts of justice.
Justice, yeah, so it may not be justice to you, but the law, once the law is properly followed, that's what we need. But we want lawyers, people that study law, to be committed, not so much, because of financial outcome. Yes, initially, sometimes financial is difficult, you really don't make much money, but in time you do. But we want them to go to work hard for the community, work hard for their clients, know how to work, know the law,
Right.
the spot issues, so you can properly represent your client and help society. So good work brings good reputation to the practice of law. Bad work and bad attitude, bad ethics, bad lack of proper professional practice, professional responsibility, and ethics brings bad reputation to the profession and everyone associated with the profession. So we do well to make sure that, whether you're representing a criminal defendant, we want you to properly serve them well, work hard for them, and give them the best attention, best legal attention. And then, of course, what happens later on, as long as justice is served, you've done your job. But though, thank you so much again, and for listening and joining into our podcast. Professor Kempson.
Y'all have a good day. And like I said, I look forward to seeing you in class.
See you next time. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Keep following us. Thank you so much, Kabbalah Nation, Barclay College of Law.